sustainer of all, and send my blessings upon all the prophets and chosen servants of God Almighty, including and especially upon Prophet Muhammad and his family. Because we are having a diverse audience, I think I will be mostly speaking in English. I want to start by saying that as I have spoken with Sheikh Abdul Jalil before my speech today, I almost never speak in front of a scholar. However, because it's my last day in town and it's the occasion of Nowruz, I was asked to speak tonight. So with apology to him and all of you, I'm going to give a few words here. I begin by a verse of the Quran. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم أفعينا بالخلق الأول بل هم في لبس من خلق جديد. I'll say it Farsi too. آیا در آفرینش نخستین درمانده بودیم بلکه ایشان از خلق جدید یا آفرینش جدید شک و شبهه دارند. Were we incapable of doing the original creation, and yet they are in confusion and doubt about the new creation. I begin by reminding ourselves we're in Nowruz time, and Nowruz as celebrated by many people throughout the world, hundreds of millions of people throughout the world. The word, of course, as many of you know, is Nowruz. No as in new, Ruz as in day. So Nowruz, a new day. And of course, we're all reminded that it's the new year. There's something new and novel and original happening, and it's an opportunity for us to renew ourselves. What I want to talk about today is this renewal, this khalqan jadid, this new kind of creation that happens. And my discussion will be in the context of Islamic mysticism, Irfan Islami. And a lot of the sayings that you hear in Irfan Islami, often you have to give yourself time to chew on them and to think about them and develop them in your hearts. As I often say, give yourself an opportunity to think about these. These are based, the scholars, the people who have said some of these things that you will be hearing today, inshallah, they have been inspired by the Quran, by the sayings of Prophet Muhammad and the Ahlul Bayt, and by their reflections, because we're taught by Imam Musa Kazim that God Almighty has two kinds of proofs, the inner and the outer. The outer proofs are the prophets and the imams, and the inner proof is the intellect. And intellect does not mean rationality in the modern sense, which is actually quite narrow. Intellect, or aql, is far wider and deeper than we often think about in a modern sense of rationality, which is limited to limited forms of logic. It includes that, but it's beyond that. So I just ask you to contemplate on some of these. There is a terminology that you will be hearing today, and so there's different things that they refer to, and their point is that we think every year there is a renewal. We think that on the Day of Judgment there is a renewal. But there's actually at every single moment of our lives a renewal. Every single instance there is a renewal. And in fact they interpret this verse بَلْ هُمْ فِي لَبْسٍ مِّنْ خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ, but they are in a state of confusion with this new creation, خَلْقٍ جَدِيد. They say it's not just about the hereafter. It's right in front of their eyes. At every moment, God is renewing and remanifesting in everything around us, and yet we're confused and we don't see it, and some see it. So I want to sort of talk about that because of this occasion of Nowruz, and basically my claim is that every moment is a Nowruz. Every instance is a Nowruz. Right? And so let's talk about that. There are different names that they use about this. Khalqan Jadid, which was the Quranic term, but there are other terms like Tajaddud Amsal, which means the renewal of the methods, of the instances, a constant renewal of what is in front of you, what is the instances that are happening in front of you. Or خلق امثال. Or there is a term called تجدید عالم, تبدل عالم. So these are things that you will be hearing today, and I just want you to think about it. I want to ask you to think about this question. Has anybody here stepped into the same river twice? It's actually a question since the very old days in the Greeks. Heraclitus or Heraclitus asked this from people. Have you ever stepped into the same river twice? Okay? Or can you step into the same river twice? And this is something that Plato says, that Heraclitus says, so he sort of goes, because these are the pre-Socratic people. And the answer that he gives is that no. We think we're stepping into the same river, but no. Imagine you step into the same river, you come out of the river, when you step in it the second time, it looks like the same river, but it's not the same river. The water has already moved away. This is a new kind of river that's ahead of you. And so he claims, and the Muslim Urafa and the mystics say this actually even in a much deeper way. And I will inshallah mention this. You can never step into the same river twice. Now you may be asking, well, so what? But so hold on to that. But let's actually talk about this. Let's actually develop the concept first. Then the so what, which my wife often tells me, well, so what? Just wait. Okay, so it's happening, inshallah. Let's just develop the concept. So there are some examples. There are some examples which I wish to mention to you. And there is a rule that the people of depth talk about, and they say la tekrara fi tajalli. There is no repetition in manifestation. And this again has been said in different ways. I will just recite for you one way of saying this. Here's one example. إن الله سبحانه. This is not a narration. This is a statement in Irfan Islam. إن الله سبحانه ما تجلى قط في سورة واحدة لشخصين ولا في سورة واحدة مرتين. God Almighty has never manifested in the same form or shape for two different people. God has never shown himself in the exact same shape and form in two different people, and he has never shown himself, manifested himself, revealed in the same form or shape twice. God never revealed. Nothing is what it used to be. Now we may think, okay, well, this thing here seems like what it was 2 minutes ago, or this is like what it used to be 2 minutes ago, or this used to be what it used to be 2 minutes ago. Their claim, and this is a very strong claim, is that is not true. This is not what you think. This is not as constant and as continuous as you think it is. Like the river. Okay? Now, so inshallah, let's talk about this one. Let's do a salawat. So there are some examples that I would like to provide for you. One example that the Urafa, the Muslim mystics have mentioned, is the example of Chirag nafti, the oil candle. Or what do you call it? Or like the old days. I don't know what to say. It's like an oil lamp. Like an oil lamp. So this is a kind of a thing where there's a sort of a fitile. I don't know how to translate that either. It's like a thing that is connected to the oil, and then the oil constantly feeds it, and then the burning happens. So they talk about this thing, this oil lamp, and they say, well, look at the oil lamp. You look at the fire of the oil lamp, you tend to think, well, yeah, we got a fire in front of us, great. But they say, think about this fire. And I'm going to read for you, for example, one example. So this is an example where Muayyidin Janadi, or Jandi, who's one of the people who talks about this point, says that. I'm going to read this part in Farsi, so please stay with me. به حقیقت تجدد امثال کسی راه نمی‌یابد مگر آن کس که تبدل صورت نوری که در چراغ مشاهده می شود را یافته باشد. زیرا عقل صحیح میگوید جز I'm doing the translation, his original statement is not in Persian but I'm doing the translation. زیرا عقل صحیح میگوید جز شعله‌ور از روغن و فتیله دم به دم از بین میرود و بقا نداشته متلاشی میشود و آتشی که نور از آن ساطع میشود به جزئی که به آن جزء خاموش شده متصل است تعلق میپذیرد. بعد and then he continues to say علت دوام و بدون هیچ توقفی روشن این ظهور میکند به گونه‌ای که حس فاصله میان صورت‌های شعله کشیده و شعله‌های خاموش نمی‌بیند تا بدان حد که گمان می‌کند نوری که اول شب روشن شد عیناً همان نوری است که در آخر شب مشاهده می‌شود. با این حساب هر کس از صاحبان حس سلیم و عقل صحیح بدین تبدل در صورت آتش آگاه شود به دگرگونی مجموعه صورت‌های عالم در هر آنی آگاهی خواهد یافت. You say just think about it. You look at a lamp, oil lamp, beginning of the night till morning on. Think about it. Just think about it. In fact, even our own lamps are the same. Actually, when you think about it, it's the same thing. The electricity is coming through. The electrons are coming through. They're bringing in the energy. What is turning this on right now is not what was doing it before. It's not the same light, even though we think. We have this imagination that this light is permanent, it's the same thing, it's been here for a while and it will be. But at every moment, it's renewing itself and we're not aware of it. Now imagine if suddenly your eyes opened up and you suddenly saw the flow of electricity through the wires and you saw this amazing movement, electromagnetic movement of things coming in, lighting things up, going out, going to the, coming from the source. Imagine if we saw all of that, right? So He's saying, think about that a little bit more, and maybe you might start looking at other things that way too. That was example number one. Example number two they give is about food consumption, the human body. You look at me right now, and I've seen many of you after 3 years, you're like, well, it's Arman, Or is it? I mean, yeah, I guess so, but is it the same guy? Is it the same person? Look, yeah, Arman. But people say that after many, many years, the entire body and the cellular system has been replaced, right? In the old days, in the old teb, in the old medicine, they would call this tahlil. Tahlil is this thing where the body is constantly being consumed and being replaced, right? And then they would even in the old days, they would call it chemus, or actually in English, they call it chyme. Chyme is this semi-fluid thing that after you digest food, it sort of, from the stomach, it starts to move around. And they said, well, this thing comes in and is consumed, and then the next day, there's other things happening. So the thing that you see in your body is being consumed by you, and there's new things coming in to replace it. And today's medicine is the same thing. I forget the number, maybe Dr. Sajjad can help me out here, but after X number of years, I don't know what it is, your entire body is replaced with a new cellular mechanism, right? So, yeah, I mean, I look the same, but my entire body has been replaced after a certain number of years. Now, we don't see it. You don't look at me like, oh, wow, look at all this metabolism going on. You see this constancy. But there is so much amazing stuff happening right now in my body and your body. And we are kind of like, we are kind of confused and unaware of this constant renewal that is right in front of us in this room of many people. Imagine suddenly your eye, you develop this X-ray vision and you go through everybody's body, see what's happening in their body. So that was example number 2. And example number 3 is something I already gave you, and that was the river that Heraclitus has said, and then the Muslim mystics have said it too. So just one example. وهو من كمال العلم بالخلق الجديد فإن الفيض الوجودي والنفس الرحماني دائم السريان والجريان في الأكوان كالماء الجاري في النهر فإنه على الاتصال يتجدد على الدوام. It's like the water in a river, that this breath, this divine breath is constantly coming in, constantly renewing it, and we're sort of not seeing it, that this is constantly being renewed. Again, just hang in there with me. You may be asking, well, so what? But I want you to actually first think about it And then actually the meanings, inshallah, will become more clear. Now, I want to tell you an interesting example. One example I've heard years ago that every time I think about it and I share it, I'm pleased myself. It's such a beautiful example, something to think about. In the Quran, we read the story of Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salatu wasalam. You know, there is this thing going on where there is this Queen Sheba, right? I think, or say Sheba, and then she's, there's a potential conflict brewing in the air. And he asks somebody, can you go bring her throne here? Because he wants to make sure that she sees and she witnesses the strength and the glory of God. And you've heard this story, but what happens is that first there is this sort of jinn that stands up and says, I can bring this to you قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك. I can bring this throne to you before you stand up. I can do it. But then this other person says قال الذي عنده علم من الكتاب. This other person, which turns out to be Asif Barkhia, who is the Wasi of Prophet Sulaiman, kind of like the Imam after him. Right? He stands up and he has a part of the knowledge of the book. He says, "Ana atika bihi qabla yartadda ilayka tarfud." I will bring this to you before even you blink. Right? Now imagine the glory of Sulaiman himself, that his wasi and his imam, his representative, Asif is saying, I can bring this to you with a blink of an eye. Now you've heard this story and he does that. But what is very amazing about this story is that the Muslim mystics say what has actually happened there is not that he's taken the throne of the queen and moved it from there to here. The story is different, and I want to share this with you. He says the story is at every moment, this is being renewed. Like we're sitting here, this table is being renewed. Because this table wants to go to annihilation. This wants to go to its source, which is nothingness, because it has no might. Allah constantly is renewing, refreshing this table in front of us. But at that moment, Allah, what He's done is, He said, I'm going to be renewing, refreshing this throne, but I'm not going to refresh it here. I'm going to refresh and represent it there. So Allah is constantly renewing, refreshing, re-bringing forth the table, the throne, everything we have in our lives. Right? The Sheikh was saying, everything, servitude, that's why it's so beautiful. Because the person recognizes that all is with Allah. Allah is giving us everything. All is in His hands. Imagine if we truly knew that everything I'm saying now, everything I'm holding, everything I'm seeing, everything I'm sitting on is renewing itself. It's not in my hands. God is giving it. At that moment, God said, this throne will not be going to the queen at that very moment. It will be renewed in the court of Sulaiman and it will be going there. So thinking about it, they ask us to think about it that way. Let's do a salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
And amongst the scholars that we've had, one of the amazing scholars that we've had is Sadr al-Muta'allihin Shirazi, Mullah Sadra, as you've heard of him. He also talks about this. And he talks about this concept. Effectively, he's talking about the same thing. Though he tends to focus a lot on beings besides the beings that are mujarrad aqli, like there's certain kinds of beings that he imagines them to be more permanent perhaps than the rest. But he's also effectively saying the same thing. But the Urafa are effectively saying everything is constantly being renewed. وَهَذَا صَارِ فِي الْعَالَمِ كُلُّهُ. Muhaqqiq Jami says this. This is the case in the entirety of the world. Okay, so we're having this situation, and then they say, and they talk about, this one's from Ibn Arabi, who says, if فَلَوْ شَاهَدْتَهُ فَالْعَالَمُ, just stay with me here, says فَالْعَالَمَ فِي كُلِّ نَفْسٍ or نَفَسٍ مِنْ حَيْثِ السُّورَةِ فِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ لَا تَكْرَارَ فِيهِ. Says what I said already. There is no repetition. It's a constant renewal. Allah is constantly renewing. One of the names of Allah, by the way, is Al-Badi'. Al-Badi'. You might have heard of it. We don't necessarily talk about Al-Badi' too much. Al-Badi' is one who does original, who's the original. Allah is the original. And the point is, Allah is He never repeats the same thing. The other day, sometimes I say the same silly joke over and over again, and it's with almost a point of laughter with my friends. They're like, come on, Arman, give us another of your repetitive jokes. And we kind of laugh at my repetitiveness. The other day I was thinking to myself, how terrible that I repeat myself. Allah is the, Al-Badi'. If we're going to be Abdul Badi', a servant of the Al-Badi', we're supposed to be originals. We're supposed to be not repeating and regurgitating the exact same thing we've known. Even our knowledge, right? Like somebody was once saying, this is a controversial statement. He said, a real believer is one who changes his beliefs constantly grows. The Quran says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, amenu. O who you believe, believe. Constantly renew, refresh. Whereas this person says, a munafiq stays on the same thought 7 years of his life. He just believes in the exact same thing, exact same form, with no change, no growth, no newer, deeper understanding all his life. I was listening to Ayatollah, not Hassan Zadeh Amuli, but help me out here. Jawadi, Ayatollah Jawadi Amuli, may Allah preserve him. Just one of the greatest scholars I believe we have right now on earth. And Ayatollah Jawadi, my belief, but highly, highly respectable marja and scholar, he was saying there is no end to knowledge. Like the way he said it almost made me excited. There is no end to knowledge. And he was saying to some scholars, he was saying, you have not been commanded to be a regular kind of person that just, I interpret what he was saying, is to just believe the exact same thing over and over and over again. He says there is no end to knowledge. The Prophet used to say, right? He was told that, oh Allah, increase me in knowledge. So this growth, this non-repetition is something we should be learning from this. Anyhow, back to here. He says, فَلَوْ شَاهَدْتَهُ لَرَأَيْتَ أَمْرًا عَظِيمًا. If you really saw this tajaddud amthal, if you saw this constant renewal that is in front of you, يَحُولُ كَمَنْ دَرَهُ, it would be this massive event that would totally scare you, وَيُرَفِكَ خَوْفًا, and it would totally scare you. And وَلَوْلَا مَا يُؤَيِّدُ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْكَشْفِ الْعَلِيمِ لَتَاهُ خَوْفًا. If Allah has really helped the other people who see it, otherwise they would have been, the fear overtakes. So imagine right now that you see Allah in action in front of you, everything renewing. I'll give you one example that I personally connect with. Whenever I go on top of a 30-story building, I look down. I don't know what happens to you, but something happens to me. Well, anybody want to share their feeling? You're on top of a 30-story building, you look down. Like, what is that feeling? Can anybody tell me how you feel? Yes?
Absolutely scared.
Absolutely scared, yeah. Anybody else? How do you feel? Please, anybody here? Everything looks small, okay? What's the feeling you have? I need an answer. Yes.
I can see the entire world.
You can see the entire world from here. What happens when you look down at the street? Yes, somebody was going to say here. Yes?
Something new happens every second.
Something new is happening every second. I think you understood the lesson today, so I'm done. Yes? Go ahead.
You can see other people doing things.
You can see other people doing things. Anybody else? What's that? You feel like you're going to fall. The way I feel myself is this gut-wrenching feeling that I might be annihilated in about a couple of seconds. Because I feel, looking down, that in about 2 seconds I could be dead. Like I'm away from death and annihilation and disappearance from this earth in about 2 seconds, depending on how long it takes, right? Depends on the height of the building. But I'll probably have a heart attack in the middle of the way anyways, so yeah, 2 seconds. Okay, that's the feeling I have. It's this feeling of gut-wrenching feeling that I'm going to be annihilated, possibly in 2 seconds. The truth is, that is the case anyways. We are being constantly upheld by Allah. He stops maintaining and preserving us. It's like us falling from that building at any moment, right? And that's why this can be very scary. If someone truly witnesses that Allah is like almost holding us from falling to this endless valley of annihilation, that would be a pretty scary thought. And maybe that's why Allah is not showing it to many of us. This verse of the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, إن الله يمسك السماوات والأرض أن تزولا ولئن زالتا إن أمسكهما من أحد من بعده. This verse says Allah is the one who maintains, who yumsik, who holds on to, right, the heavens and the earth from like falling, right, from just, right, وَلَئِنْ زَالَتَا, and if they're going to go away, there's no one but Him that's going to maintain. So if we truly are able to witness that Allah is preserving us at every single instance, imagine the kind of lives we might be leading. This feeling of vulnerability can actually be a very good feeling. This feeling of pompousness and overconfidence that I'm on top of the world, I'm like this, might go away, and imagine how much goodness can come out of that. Let's do a salawat. So I'm just going to finish with a poem by Jami, who has this really lovely poem actually, and I'm going to just read it for you. حادث ممکن که نباشد به خود فیض وجودش حادث ممکن که نباشد به خود فیض وجودش متعاقب رسد. He says like some created being is not by itself, and its being is constantly coming to it. Otherwise it's gonna be gone. Any of us. بی خبر از سر شدید العقاب ره نبرد معنی مر السحاب. There's a verse of the Quran. It's a very strange verse actually. It says وَتَرَى الْجِبَالَ تَحْسَبُهَا جَامِدَةً وَهِيَ تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. You see the mountains, they look solid. وَهِيَ تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. Yet it is moving or passing like a cloud. This verse has been interpreted in many different ways. I believe for centuries to come, this verse will be renewing itself to the people of contemplation. But at least one thing I want to take from you, we think a mountain or this table or me or this floor I'm standing on is this solid thing that's there. And yet the Quran says it's like a cloud. It's like a cloud, right? And so Jami is saying it in the poem. گو بنگر روشنی مستنیر کوز مضیء چون شده تا بشپذیر. He says, look at something that reflects light, which from something who has original light is reflecting light, like the moon. He says, like, look at the moon. You think moon has constancy, right? تابش هر آن ندر آن رسد بهره ز هستی به همان سان رسد. That moon that you think, wow, tonight is a full moon. No, tonight, at every instance, the full moonness is coming to it. At every instance, تابش هر آن ندر آن رسد. Is it not the case that at every moment the brilliance and the illumination is coming to it at every instance from the sun? Then he says, if you believe that, بهره ز هستی به همان سان رسد. Same for you. You are sitting here, but at every moment and instance, you're being provided with existence from Allah Almighty. So I will stop here. I'm sorry that I spoke way too much, but inshallah, I ask Allah Almighty to make us realize that every moment and every instance is Nowruz, and for us to develop, inshallah, that knowledge and that wisdom and that humility that nothing is as it seems, nothing is as firm as we imagine it to be, and Allah is maintaining everything. And we ask Allah Almighty to give us the vulnerability and the ubudiyah, as the Shaykh was saying, and the dependence, utter dependence and vulnerability on Him, and the servitude on Him. به برکت صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد.